Welcome to Shocking History Photos, uncovering the forgotten, bizarre, and sometimes deadly moments behind the pictures. What if I told you people once wore poison as lipstick, broke their bones for beauty, and turned their foreheads into bagels, all in the name of fashion? From radioactive makeup to shoes that could kill, these are the 20 most shocking fashion trends in history. Trust me, number 7 will leave you speechless. For over 1,000 years, Japanese women painted their teeth black. Yes, black, using a mix of iron scraps and vinegar. Called ohaguro, this vampire-like trend may have signaled wealth or just saved their teeth from rotting. It was so popular, it survived in China until 1870, when Westerners finally banned it. Thank God for modern dentistry, right? In 10th century China, girls endured one of history's most painful beauty standards. Yes, they broke their feet for fashion. Those born without naturally tiny feet had their arches crushed and toes bent underfoot, all to squeeze into 3-inch lotus shoes. Mothers did this to their own daughters, believing it would lead to better marriages. The shoes themselves became status symbols, some embroidered with silver threads, others hidden under elaborate skirts. This brutal practice continued for centuries, with the last Lotus shoe factory finally closing in 1999 in Harbin. Nearly 1,000 years of foot binding, all because someone decided small feet were beautiful. When it comes to the most bizarre and unusual fashion trends in history, Eastern Asia often tops the list. During the Heian period from 794 to 1185 in Japan, there was a unique trend called hikimayu. This practice involved removing natural eyebrows and painting smudge-like ones higher up on the forehead. Sounds strange, right? But at the time, it was considered elegant and gave women a soft, dreamy look that symbolized high status. It started among court ladies, but soon every noblewoman wanted the bare-browed style. This eyebrow trend lasted for centuries before fading away, now only seen in historical paintings. Women from the same Heian period had another fascinating fashion trend. They didn't settle for just one robe, they layered up to 12. This extravagant outfit was called junihito. It was incredibly heavy, weighing around 20 pounds of silk. Each layer had its own name, color, and meaning. The number of layers could also vary depending on the occasion. This formal dress was worn by noblewomen and ladies-in-waiting at the Japanese imperial court. Today, the junihito is mostly seen in museums, movies, tourist attractions, or special Japanese festivals. In 14th century Poland, footwear became a public safety hazard. The infamous Krakows featured pointed toes so long, up to 20 inches, that wearers stuffed them with moss or tied them to their knees just to walk. What began as a status symbol for the wealthy, some adorned with gold, soon had everyone stumbling through streets until kings intervened. Francis Charles V banned them in 1368, calling them excessive, while England's Edward IV outlawed them completely by 1465. Today, these absurd shoes survive only as museum curiosities. In the 14th and 15th century Europe, beauty had a literal high standard. The bigger your forehead, the more attractive you were. Since nature didn't always cooperate, women took matters into their own hands, painfully plucking their hairlines back with tweezers or wax. What began among aristocratic women in England and Italy, who believed expansive brows made them look both intelligent and elegant, became a widespread, if uncomfortable, trend. Unlike other extreme fashions that faced official bans, this one simply faded away as hairstyles evolved in the 1500s. Today, those unnaturally oval faces peer out from old portraits, a silent testament to how far women would go for beauty standards. Just when you think fashion can't get wilder, Renaissance Italy said, "Hold my wine," and invented 18-inch death platforms called chopines. Wealthy Venetian women wobbled around on these stilts, some jewel-encrusted, others plain cork, needing servants just to stay upright. Why? Because towering over others literally meant you were above them. The higher the chopin, the richer you looked, and the harder you fell. By the 1600s, even Italians admitted defeat and switched to shoes you could walk in. From the 1450s to the 1570s, European men faced a tight pants problem, and their solution was the codpiece. This triangular flap started as basic coverage for hose that left very little to the imagination. But soon, modesty went out the window. King Henry VIII famously made his bigger and bedazzled, turning it into a royal power move. Some stayed simple, just leather or cloth, but others, overstuffed masterpieces with embroidery and jewels. Walking was manageable, but sitting or riding a horse, awkward doesn't begin to cover it. Though looser pants made them obsolete by the 1600s, these Renaissance mood rings still gawk at us from old paintings, proof that fashion has always been a little extra. Now this one is pretty famous, you've probably seen it in movies. This big, stiff ring of fabric was called a ruff or ruffle collar. It had been around before, but it truly took off with Queen Elizabeth, who loved looking grand. Some of these collars stretched up to 9 inches wide, made of linen or lace. They ranged from simple white designs to extravagant ones woven with gold threads. While ruffs looked elegant, they weren't exactly practical. Eating or even turning your head became a challenge. In 1621, Philip IV of Spain banned them in an attempt to weaken the influence of the old Spanish elite. Believe it or not, ruffle collars still survive today. You can spot them on bishops in Denmark's church and a few other traditional ceremonies. Before the 1660s, fashion was mostly a woman's world, until kings like France's Louis XIV and England's Charles II decided men should be just as extra. Suddenly, it was all about towering white wigs, teetering red heels, and enough lace to drown in. Every outfit screamed, "Look at my wealth." Of course, the look came with issues: itchy wigs, unstable walking, and lace that needed more care than a newborn. Yet nobles still copied it eagerly, until the style got even more ridiculous. Which brings us to the macaroni excess of the 1760s. After kings made men's fashion extravagant in the 1660s, wealthy English dandies took it further, calling themselves macaronis after the trendy Italian pasta. Their uniform? Skin-tight coats, blindingly bright stockings, and wigs so tall they'd bump chandeliers. And yes, they absolutely carried miniature swords, not for dueling, but for proving they'd never done a day's work. At first, macaroni meant high fashion, but when peasants started imitating them with cheap wigs and painted-on buckles, it became a joke. Even Yankee Doodle mocked them. By the 1780s, the trend died the way all overpriced fads do when everyone could afford it. While the macaronis were busy peacocking in the 1760s, women's fashion reached literal extremes. Since the 1710s, French and English aristocrats had been wearing panniers, oval-shaped frames under their skirts that stretched up to 6 feet wide. These wood or metal cages made hips look absurdly broad while keeping the front and back flat. Of course, the style was gloriously impractical. Doorways became obstacle courses, sitting required precise maneuvering, and often a servant's help. Simple tasks like picking up a fan became acrobatic feats. Though panniers shrank by the 1780s, they never fully disappeared, just evolved into new outrageous shapes in the next century. When panniers fell out of fashion, crinolines took their place. While similar in their cage-like structure, crinolines created a full bell shape around the entire dress, not just at the sides. Victorian women adored these massive skirts in the mid-1800s, especially when paired with the era's signature corsets. But the style came with dangerous flaws. Navigating doorways became a struggle, sitting required careful planning, and the flammable materials proved deadly. In 1871, Oscar Wilde's sisters Emily and Mary learned this tragically. While dancing near a fireplace, their crinoline dresses caught fire. The flames spread instantly, killing both young women before anyone could help. Yet even this horror couldn't end the trend. Crinolines remained popular for years, a haunting reminder of how far women would go for fashion. If crinolines were dangerous, arsenic green dresses were downright deadly. Starting in 1775, chemists created this vibrant, fade-proof green dye by mixing in actual arsenic. By the Victorian era, the color was everywhere, especially on evening gowns that glowed hauntingly under candlelight. There was just one problem: arsenic is poison. The dye caused blisters, made wearers sick if it rained, and some even suspect it killed a few particularly devoted fashionistas. Yet women kept wearing it until the 1870s, when public outcry finally overcame vanity. The creepiest part? Those toxic dresses still glow in museums today, a beautiful reminder that fashion has always been, well, to die for. In 1898, Marie Curie found radium, and soon after, companies jumped in. Though Radia in France and Radio in England put it in creams, powders, and even toothpaste. They said it would make your skin firm and your smile bright. In the early 1900s, Europe and the United States went wild for this radiant beauty, believing it gave a healthy glow. But later, people realized radium wasn't safe. That glow actually came from radiation, burning skin, or worse over time. The radium girls, or the workers painting watch dials, got sick and many died. Even so, people used this stuff into the 1920s. Eventually, in the 1930s, laws officially banned the use of radium in cosmetics. In the late 1800s, fashion became more natural with the use of living jewelry. Victorian women in England and America pinned live insects onto their clothes. These include beetles, lizards, and even chameleons. The trend started in the 1870s when people admired nature and exotic things. Some beetles had shiny shells that matched dresses. On the other hand, chameleons were sold as pets as they could change colors to blend with outfits. But as you can already feel, it wasn't comfortable. Bugs could either bite or escape. That's why by the 1890s, people switched to fake insects and the trend gradually faded. Old sketches of these living jewels can still be found in history books. It may sound strange and creepy today, but back then it was a way to wear something sparkly. The 1910s brought the hobble skirt, a deceptively simple torture device disguised as fashion. Designed by Paul Poiret as a reaction against bulky skirts, these ankle-strangling creations forced women to take comically tiny steps, earning their name from the same restraints used on horses. Women wore them religiously to appear modern, despite moving at the pace of a frustrated duck. The trend lasted until 1914, when even the most dedicated followers apparently remembered that walking is a useful life skill. In the 1920s, showing legs was a bold new trend. But to look more stylish and playful, young women, especially flappers, painted their knees with makeup. They used rouge, lipstick, or watercolor to draw hearts, flowers, or little faces, sometimes matching their outfits. They considered it a fun way to stand out at dance halls and parties. While older generations found it silly or wild, flappers loved the cheeky look. This trend faded by the 1930s when skirts became longer again. The 1969 moon landing was one of the biggest events in history. While most people were surprised to see the astronauts, an Italian designer focused on their chunky boots. He was so inspired that he created his own version of them, big, puffy snow boots for everyone. Made of nylon and foam, moon boots were super light and warm, unlike heavy leather boots. With all the moon hype, people went crazy for them. In the 1980s, kids and teens wore them everywhere, even in cities. They went out of fashion for a while, but made a comeback in the 2000s when stars like Paris Hilton brought them back. Moon boots might be clumsy to walk in, but since when has that stopped fashion? From medieval Krakows to space-age moon boots, we've always prized looking cool over walking comfortably. And now, claiming the top spot, bagel head, perhaps the most bizarre beauty trend in history. This saline injection experiment began in late 1990s Canada, where body artist Jerome Abramovich plumped his forehead with salt water until, pop, a thumb press created that perfect bagel dent. The catch? It required expert technique and vanished within hours as the body absorbed the fluid. The trend got its real boost when Japanese artist Kerapi Maeda brought it to Tokyo's underground scene in 2007. By 2012, a National Geographic feature had media calling it Japan's hottest trend, though most Japanese had no idea it existed. Today, those eerie photos remain as proof. When it comes to extreme fashion, humanity's creativity and willingness to endure weirdness knows no limits. From teeth blackened with iron to foreheads inflated like bagels, one thing's clear: fashion has always been equal parts boldness and madness. Which of these trends horrified you most? Could you imagine wearing poison silk or wobbling on 18-inch platforms? Share your thoughts below and hit like subscribe for more jaw-dropping moments from history. Because let's face it, today's runway looks will likely baffle future generations too.